My name is Anthony Wright.
And
I'm light-skinned black male, kind of stocky, short, dark hair, a little bit of gray in the sides, as you can see, a goatee, and a light shaved beard, light brown eyes. Yeah.
have you been in prison so far?
I've been in prison since 2001. Actually, got arrested March 5th, 2001, but fought my case for about a year and a half or so. So I actually got to prison itself, the facility of prison, mid 2002 or late 2002.
Do you have a release date?
Yes, I haven't done the math, but it's 2,137, I believe. Mainly education, but also a lot of self-help groups that I'm a part of. But Alternatives to Violence has become my new project. It's a really good program. I also been a part of HEAL. That's a new one that started here. It's more of a restorative justice program, but it stands to HEAL is an acronym. It stands for Healing Education and Accountability for Liberation, and it helps guys unpack a lot of the things that we keep inside, especially in here, because you walk around, you're wearing a mask most of the time, just because of the atmosphere. But when you're around like-minded individuals, you're able to actually unpack a lot of the stuff, the harm even that's been done to you, the harm that you've caused, and taking full accountability for that. And a lot of shame comes with that I learned, and that's something that really needs to be unpacked if you really want to start moving forward. Otherwise, you'll just be holding that in the whole time. So that education has also been very helpful. And I finished high school through a continuation. In California, they got these schools called I forgot what they call them up here, but in California, they're called continuation schools when you're out of the regular school and you can finish pretty much at your own pace. And I finished high school there, and all the other college that I've learned, I received an AA since I've been in prison as well. But all that I've learned has been here, and so I also learned that I'm able to communicate back what I've learned. So for the past probably 8 or 9 years, I've been teaching a math class. All the math that I've learned, I'm able to relay it back. So helping guys from GED level all the way up to college. So yeah, that's really important to me too. So that's probably the most of my time is spent on education. But I think one of the most shocking moments is seeing a document that says the state of Washington versus Anthony Wright. You kind of think like, it's a big shock. Makes you really reflect and think like, okay, this boy that your mom loves to death, your kids love, the person they cherish, who have you become to, have a whole state mad at you? What have you done, and it makes you start reflecting either immediately or slowly but surely, gradually. But seeing that you don't really accept it, and I believe in God, so I think He has the last say, more than any judge, any jury, any of that, right? So my mom told me is bloom where you're planted, and I've always worried about disappointing her, right? And so constantly talking with her and saying like, Mom, I'm sorry, I just completed this. Oh, be proud of that. I'm like, well, I've disappointed you. Look where I'm at. Boy, bloom where you're planted. And that really struck me. It's like, yeah, I can still be effective where I'm at, beyond these walls. And thought about a flower coming up in the concrete, by itself, see it in the crack. It doesn't know that it's surrounded by nothing but death, and but it's looking at the sun like, I'm blooming no matter what, so I can do the same thing. And so I think that took a long time to actually, it took a gradual process of being like, what, do the best that you can while you're here. Be remembered as something other than, what that says on that document. And so that's been my goal in life, is to be remembered as something other than, the worst decision I've ever made. One of the worst things, seeing some of the guys grow old and pass away in here, right? Or even not even grow old, but because of not that great of health care, pass away in here. It's scary in a sense, thinking that you'll die alone, right? In a room. The possibility of dying alone in a room with no one knowing what was really going on with you, and I've seen that, and it's sad. Some of the older gentlemen that I remember when I first got here, right, running the track, laughing, joking, to being barely able to walk, or having someone have to clean their cell for them, or not remembering, or, being on some of the psychotropics and things that they've been taking, thinking that it's something wrong with their sleep, but it's actually something hormonal in the drug that's making them just completely change, and they can't even articulate a regular conversation. It's scary to think of that, so yeah, that's a fear that I don't like to think about a lot, but yeah, it's scary. There's no benefit to someone growing old in prison. I see some people who, if you were able to meet them, if you were able to humanize them, you realize that there's no way that this person's going to harm anyone, it's a paradox being treated every day from a decision you made in the past. And so you're thinking about, I wish people could actually meet some of the people that I see that are going to, actually die or scheduled to die in prison, and realize that, they're remorseful, they're human, they deserve, a better quality of life. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I want people to know. Like, these are still, people. They have hopes and dreams that have been deferred, but still, that look at the time frame that they're. How does that serve? If you're mad at the person, I can understand that, and I can't tell the person how long to be mad or be hurt, at something that's especially been harm to their family or even to them. But just think about, what purpose is that serving for someone to grow old in these inhumane conditions? I've learned to act as if I'm getting out every day, and try to get other people to act the same way. The sad thing is that the way is because it's political. A lot of the guys who need a lot of the help come for short periods of time. Really a slap on the wrist. It's sad to say, but 5-10 years is really a slap on the wrist compared to a lot of us who have a long time. And we see them go and come back, go and come back. And I think it's really disheartening for them to not realize that they could actually, it's one decision away of being in the same boat, I think, again, that would change the perspective, mentioning like those a lot of the young guys or people who maybe have drug issues or that are not dealt with, and they come and go and come and go. I think if they had the sense of all hope lost, it might change their perspective, But that's not a way to go about, just sentence people, hey, okay, you stole a candy bar, you're in here forever, and hopefully you change your perspective. That's not a way to go about it. But I think it takes that sense of, like, who am I? What am I going to do? So, and maybe if I can lead by example, it was very easy in the criminal life to manipulate people to do things, right? So I use that same influence to get somebody in school, the same influence to get somebody off the yard from, and getting into a fight or whatnot, So I realized that that's peer pressure is not always bad, it can be a good thing. And utilizing that and leading by example, hopefully they'll see, like, okay, this guy has all day. Actually, people have told me that before. I can't believe when they find out how much time I have, because I don't just wear it on my shoulder. They think I'm getting out soon too. So I say it's working because I act like I'm getting out every day. They think I'm getting out within a short amount of time. When they find out, they're like, damn, I'd go crazy if I had that much time. Well, how would that help you? What purpose is being served by someone sitting in here graying in prison? What is the purpose of it? And you will see that you peel back the layers, it's strictly retribution. It's strictly retaliatory. Like, you did this, okay, then we're going to just throw you away. You're just a lost life, and that should not be. It should be reevaluated to show the worth. You're rarely going to find a human that doesn't have worth. I think the problem is that when people are thrown away, you guys are familiar with restorative justice, right? A lot of people will say that they're about it, but they're really not. It's really, everything's retaliatory. So when you separate the author of a crime and the receiver of a crime, you just separate them and the state takes over. A lot of times you realize that the actual person who is on the end of the crime survivor actually really wants to know what's going on with the person, actually want to know why they did it, their story, things like that. I think that if they believed that the majority was behind reviewing and looking into these people who've been quote unquote thrown away, they may get behind it. So it's really about language, So like they've just recently changed the offender thing. They need to change reentry to reintegration, all kinds of different, the language barrier that you're dealing with. It makes you objectify people. But if they can see, like, geriatric, wow, these people are in there just doing nothing, growing old. I mean, they're actually costing us more being in there than they would be out here on healthcare or whatnot. I think it would change the perspective of the society. I don't think so. I think I've covered it. What would be I think getting down to what would be the purpose of keeping them. I think really pressing upon peeling back all those layers and figure out why. Why do you think it's okay to keep these aging men in prison, incapacitated and it costs the state so much money. I know a guy who takes chemotherapy pills that are about $10,000 a pill. He also has cataracts, and they said, we'll fix one. All you need is one eye to see. A guy that needs hip replacement surgery. Can you walk? And he takes him. He can't go down to the chow hall because it's some stairs. He can't go to the yard and walk around because there's stairs to get down there. And they don't want to take the time to take him to the elevator. It just takes more staff to be able to take him down there. And he can't exercise anymore because he needs these hip replacements. They said, well, can you walk to the bathroom and back? Yes. Well, then you're fine. So these are the things that are going on, and I wish people actually would know, like, how dismissive it is about a human being, how dismissive they can be about a human being. Because you have to think about, most of these aging people are grandfathers, fathers, brothers, cousins, uncles. I mean, no, absolutely not. It would be more beneficial. I'm sure they would even, have more purpose to their life. I mean, a lot of people have estranged relationships and things like that just because they've been, grandpa is away, or they don't want to tell the shame, again, they don't want to tell that their father, grandfather, whatever, uncle is in prison for life or this or that. So I think, again, changing the perspective of society, and as well as giving them more of a sense of purpose and fulfilling, some family ties. I mean, there's a lot to benefit from that. I don't see any benefits from keeping. So I don't want to give any names, but there's quite a few gentlemen that you might even be interviewing that I can't see why you would keep them in prison. I think the time being in prison is a huge factor. Age is a huge factor. Health is a huge factor. And what they've done since they've been here. Because, again, criminal justice is like, this is called a reformatory, right? But we have to reform ourselves. If there's programs that are allowed, this is like probably the best place to be. But if you don't want it, you don't have to. It's not mandatory. I can sit on my bunk, watch Jerry Springer and football and, the Kardashians, and just sit there and do nothing, just, and go to eat, come back. I don't even have to work, because they're going to say, you're okay with it. If you don't work, you're not programmed, you're stuck in your cell. Okay, 20 years. And at a certain date, they have to let these people go, right? But you can grow mentally, physically, and spiritually if you want to, And a lot of the men that I know that mentored me, that's what they did. So they were like, they're beacons to a lot of people. They're just like, yeah, that guy right there, they know he's a lifer or whatever, and it's like, I want to emulate that rather than somebody that you see is going home, which just seems pretty odd, but that's the truth.